This podcast is for general informational, educational purposes only and is not to be considered medical advice for any particular patient. Clinicians must rely on their own informed clinical judgments when making recommendations for their patients.
Okay, welcome everybody to another episode of PHM from Pittsburgh. For those of you listening, this is
Hold on, Tony. Hold on. We are taking over.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Ben Miller. I am the director of the Paul C. Gaffney Division of Pediatric Hospital Medicine here at UPMC Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh.
And I'm Ellie Sharp. I am the Associate Fellowship Director of the Pediatric Hospital Medicine Fellowship and an Assistant Professor of Pediatrics in the Paul C. Gaffney Division of Pediatric Hospital Medicine here at UPMC Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh. And we are so excited to be here to commandeer this podcast. And I just have to note that this is the second time that we are doing these introductions because the esteemed and experienced podcaster, Dr. Tony Tarchichi, had one job, and that was to press record for the first time we went through this. And we had done a really beautiful job of, starting this session, and I noticed that there was no recording icon going on. So just putting that out there for everybody to know.
That's true. It's unfortunately true. Oh, it's the first time I've ever done that, but there's first time for everything.
So, folks, we, Ellie and I and many others here in Pittsburgh have the extreme joy of seeing Tony on almost a daily basis and getting to know him personally as well as professionally. And we thought we would share this gift with all of you for the holiday season. So sit back, relax. The next, 30 to 60 minutes will be a tour of the life of Tony Tarchichi. And please join us for this ride. Yes.
And I will also say that our other gift to you is that you don't have to listen to Tony and hopefully some of his Tony jokes during this next session.
I don't know if you can make that promise, but we'll see. But for those listening, there will not be CME associated with this podcast episode, but we always thank the University of Pittsburgh for sponsoring it.
I do have a disclosure, though, that we are not going to pull any punches, Tony. We are going to dive deep. We're going to peel back the layers and get to know as much about you as we can and share that with your audience.
Right.
Tony, have you ever seen Shrek? Isn't that whole onion thing from Shrek? You have layers. I'm not comparing you to Shrek. I'm just
Sounds like you are.
I will tell you, I have compared myself to Shrek. I tell the residents that I always like to sit in a room when I'm with a patient because it's like Dr. Shrek is coming at them. And so if I'm sitting, it's less imposing for them. So I've done it myself, so it's okay.
All right. There's a lot to unpack there, I think. So let's get started. And I think my only disclosure is that I am a former fellow of Dr. Tarchichi. So I have experienced him as a fellowship director. Well, first, I guess, as a resident when he was my attending, and refused to participate in my theme Fridays, which
I ended up doing it, though. I still have it.
Kind of. It was, kind of.
Right.
And then as a fellow, and now as one of, I guess, colleagues, as one of Tony's partners. So I feel very lucky. Most days, very lucky, I think is the word to use.
That's the best I can ask.
All right, Tony, we've done some extensive research to prepare for today. Okay. I hope you're ready.
I'm ready.
I first want to start with kind of going back to the beginning. So you were raised in Philadelphia, as I learned from your Wikipedia page, and you have a brother and a sister. Tell us about your childhood, your upbringing. What was it like coming up in the Tarchichi home?
Well, my parents were immigrants, they're now American citizens, and they came over in the late 70s, early 80s. So there was they just were so thankful and lucky to be here. And I'm one of three, like you said, I'm the oldest, and we lived in a row home in Philadelphia on Roosevelt Boulevard. And so we had lots of people all around us. And it was a typical Lebanese American household. We were very loud. All of our conversations are loud. Arguing is like a normal part of conversation. My sister, who's the youngest of the three, it was always the best child for my parents because she was, always did what she was asked to do. She did very well in school. She was just a very good kid. She really was. And my brother and I were less so. We fought, we argued, we fought a lot. We gave them more trouble. So there was that. And it was just a warm, loving, loud household. That's the best way I would put it. Very good food. Very, very good food.
So Tony, that actually makes a lot of sense. As now, when I was a fellow, my little cubicle was directly outside your office, and I felt like I was in your office at all times, even when you had the office door closed, because of the volume of your voice at baseline. And then it would be hilarious when you would call me and I would be like, Tony, I can actually hear you better just you talking without the phone. So that checks out. But my question for you is your family also skilled maybe is a stretch, singers like you? Because one thing that we have all experienced is that when Tony is working on notes or just in his office, he just will sing. Some songs are recognizable, others less so. And so I'm curious where that came from.
Yeah, that's an acquired trait. That was not genetic. That didn't come from the family. That is simply something I've come up with over the years to keep myself occupied while I'm doing things. And it's stuck, very much stuck. And by the way, no one at my current house, my wife or children, likes it either. So it's not popular anywhere.
I'm glad you stick with it, though.
Yeah, it's not going to hold me back.
Well, great. I mean, I don't think many things do hold you back, Tony. It's so Tony, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your family. And I can only imagine, I just feel badly for your sister, because I'm sure the shenanigans that she had to put up with from you guys. But I'm curious as to whether anyone in your family is in healthcare or in medicine, or if your parents were in healthcare and medicine. Just what made you kind of start exploring the medical field and decide to go to medical school in the first place?
Well, I have a lot of family members in medicine, actually. Not my parents. My parents are not. But my uncle, who is deceased a few years ago, was a family doctor. His story, he's older than my mom. He was the oldest child on my mom's side. And he came over to the United States and then studied medicine. And back then, you could do a transitional year and going to general practice, which is what he did. And he did it for many years. And I will tell you, what got me into medicine was him, but he didn't mean to. It wasn't purposeful. My mother was plagued with migraine headaches growing up. She would have terrible migraine headaches. I remember birthdays where we couldn't have a party because her headaches were so bad. And she would go see her brother when we'd go to West Virginia. That's where he lived and where he practiced. And there was something about his style. I mean, he was very jovial. He was very joking, but he was very serious about what he did. And he would stop everything to take care of his sister. And he would feel bad the other doctors couldn't do it. And he would say things to make her feel better. And then he would give her medicine and she would feel better. And I was there for the interaction. I was there for him doing that to her. And that struck me at a very early age as a really great thing to do for a living, because here she was leaving and I was leaving clearly with her, and she just was happier and felt better. And I think that is when I first decided I want to do this job. And I will tell you, my parents always pushed medicine on all of them. They wanted 3 doctors in the family out of 3 kids, which they didn't get. And I told them from very early on when I decided to do medicine, it's not because you guys pushed it. They knew why I wanted to do it, but I was struck by the patient-doctor interaction with a brother and a sister. It really made me want to do the job. So that's why I went into it. That's the reason. But now I would say dozens of cousins who also had similar experiences, I think, with my uncle. And, we have interventional cardiologists, we have interventional radiologists, we have rheumatologists. We could likely fill a hospital without exaggerating. There's a lot of us.
That's an awesome legacy for your uncle, to think about how an entire generation of a family affected by his care. And his personality. That's really cool. So as fans of the podcast will know, you are med-peds trained, but you really practice hospital pediatrics. So tell us a little bit about that journey, about deciding to go into med-peds, and then you actually did some extra years of training as a chief resident in just pediatrics after you finished all 4 years of med-peds. And now you really just practice pediatrics. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I graduated residency. I was med-peds chief my 4th year in residency. And then I was asked to be the pediatric chief resident at my home institution, which is New Jersey Medical School, Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School in Newark, New Jersey. And I was honored to be asked. And at the time, my wife and I were having my oldest son. I was involved. And I wanted that time. I really wanted that time to be with him. So I took the job, and this is how jobs typically happen. After that chief year, during that chief year, 2 very good friends of mine got a job at a very small hospital in Northwest New Jersey, Chilton, and called me and said, "You should apply. This is a fun job." And that's really the amount of research I did into my first job. So I applied and got that job, and I worked there for a year. And my wife was going to she's a physician as well by training. She's now retired. She's a stay-at-home mom, but she wanted to do
wouldn't say she's retired. I think she works her butt off all the time.
She decided to step away from medicine,
mainly taking care of her husband.
She's a stay-at-home mom, but we came to Pittsburgh for her training for transfusion medicine fellowship, and I didn't apply for this job. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I just threw my application, my CV, in the UPMC portal. And I thought, if something comes up, my application's uploaded, and so I can apply. And Dr. Basil Zatelli, who was the previous division director before you, Ben, who saw my CV and saw I was chief resident twice, and they were thinking that we were going to have an opening. And so then he called me because we had something in common. And I will tell you, the very first phone conversation, I thought was a prank. So when it was him, I hung up the phone. I was like, that's not funny. And I hung up the phone. And then he called me back. He's like, this is really me. And I said, oh, God. So I felt terrible because he's famous. To me, he's famous. Because in New Jersey, I use Zatelli's Atlas, which is the Atlas of Pediatric Physical Diagnosis all the time.
Used internationally, not just in Jersey.
Right. So I knew it as that. And so I was enamored with the idea of working with someone who had written the book that I used to step past the boards, to take care of patients. And that's really all the research I did in this job. I was like, okay, I'm going to go work with Dr. Zatelli. And I applied to one other place, and I went on the interview. And I remember getting a very warm feeling here and not anywhere else. And so then I just started working here. And as I got here, within 3 years, PHM had become a subspecialty. And I got involved a little more and more each time with the fellowship, with the specialty itself, with the AAP, with all of it. And things just kind of rolled. And I tell the residents this story all the time because none of me coming to Pittsburgh was planned. It just how life kind of happens sometimes. And I tell them sometimes that's one of the best ways to go about it is as life happens, take it as it comes. You'll never know what experiences that you love will show up for you. So that's what happened. That's how I ended up here doing this.
Yeah, I love the prank phone call story.
Yeah, me too. And I was going to say, I guess I'm glad that I didn't know about the the amount of research or lack thereof that you put into your first job searches when I came to you for career navigation advice as a fellow. And you pretended to give some really thoughtful advice, I guess.
Well, I did research a whole other bunch of places to figure out, but when this is all it took was Basil to give me a call, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll work there. That's fine. That sounds great.
I think it's fair to say that a decent amount of Tony's approach to life is do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Elliot, all worked out well. The advice worked out.
Things did work out. Yeah, that is true. That is true.
So, Tony, you and I have talked about this a little bit before. That, in my opinion, I think one of the biggest roots of your success in life is that you have an utter lack of a fear of failure. You'll put yourself out there, and if something goes awry, then it goes awry, and you will deal with it, or you'll just drop it and walk away, whatever it takes. But you just are not afraid of trying something and failing. Mm-hmm. And I am honestly very admirable of that quality that you have. Where do you think that comes from? How did you develop that or not develop that fear of failure?
I don't honestly, I would love to give you a good answer to that question. I don't know. The first time I applied to medical school, I did not get in, and that was heartbreaking. And I happened into a post-bac program that I got into that prepared me for it, but I don't think that did it. I don't know. I think, if I'm being very honest, I think a part of that for me is my religion. I'm a Christian, and I believe kind of things happen for a reason. And because of that, I don't worry about failing. I will tell you, I've read extensively on some of the great people throughout history, like Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and people like Muhammad Ali, just great people, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. I mean, great athletes, and people like, even people who are now more contemporary, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I just, in all of their stories, they put themselves out there and they try something really different, really new, that really could blow up in their face. John Adams is one of my favorite stories, because here was a guy who was a lawyer who's doing pretty well and goes all in first to defend the British soldiers from the Boston Massacre, ruins his reputation, and then goes all in for the other side for states' rights, risking everything. And the idea that, whatever happens, I will likely be fine, right? I have a degree that will go with me. I have job training. So I'm really giving a terrible answer. I don't know. I can tell you, I've never been afraid to try something different if I'm interested in it, knowing I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I'm a very hard worker. And chances are I can figure things out. And if not, I'll learn something from it. And I've been trying to teach this to my kids, I'll tell you, that's the hard part, is teaching this, because it's hard for me to even explain to you here on the podcast. Teaching that, where it's like, it doesn't matter how you do. Go learn something. Try this. If it blows up in your face, you're going to be just fine. You'll learn something from it, and you'll take that with you. But yeah, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, the late, great Charlie Munger, same thing. All their stories have this ability of just trying stuff, risking failure, and seeing how it goes. That was a terrible answer. So I'm sorry.
I don't think it was a terrible answer.
I also think that answer just epitomized that you're not afraid of failing, because you just kind of rambled and you gave a good answer.
Yeah. Eventually we'll get there.
And then I also just have to say is you referenced Arnold Schwarzenegger, and is that just because of the push-ups and the weightlifting? Oh. For all of those listening, Tony is very proud of his workout regimen, and his push-ups. And he has tried, / maybe, Tony, you can, because I think maybe I don't know the whole story about this, the strongman competition.
Oh, yeah. So Brian Shaw is an athlete who was 4 times world's strongest man. and I stumbled across his videos, and it was during the pandemic. We all needed something else to do. And I have always been someone who's liked exercising. And, I had fallen out of it for a while in residency and in my early career. And I just always liked it. And I said, there is something to the idea of strength training first of all, it's healthy for you, but this idea of taking something really heavy and being able to lift it is an idea I just find really appealing. There's a feeling you get when you lift, when you're deadlifting something and it's like 300-400 pounds and you're able to get it up. There's a serotonin surge there that's just wonderful.
It's really funny because you always ask me to replace the water jugs in the office.
It's not true. That is not true.
I don't know. Maybe that's
It's not true.
Want to say that, put that out there for the world to. And if he edits this out of the podcast later, that is a big red flag.
But so during the pandemic, I thought, let me try to strength train. I have nothing. There wasn't much going on. The world shut down. So I didn't have the proper equipment. So I was just lifting whatever I could. I had some weights. I bought more. I bought sandbags, and I started getting into it. I built a regimen, and I loved it. And I started training to see if I can get into a local strongman competition, thinking that would be amazing just to go out and do it. And then I realized why trying this over 40 is not the best plan. Because I didn't have all the appropriate belts and I didn't know the appropriate technique. So I think I hurt myself twice doing it. And then I realized I should probably not go down this road. But I continued strength training, just not to really push myself to get into a strongman competition. I was doing all of it, the eating, because there's a lot of eating associated with it. And then there's strength training. And so then I realized I'm a little old for a strongman competition. So I've been doing more isometric stuff. So push-ups, pull-ups, dips, and then trying to just break my own records. And then sometimes I will do them in the office. In fact, this is audio, so you can't see anything. But out on the floor of my office, I have 2 push-up bars. And so sometimes I'll just close my door clearly, and then do some push-ups, and then that'll be, yeah. So I really do love it. And it's one of the things I talk about. I'm not a very interesting person in general. I have like 3 or 4 things in my wheelhouse, like working out, podcasting, and investing, financial stuff. And that's really, and sports, I would say. And that's really me, but I'm not the best at cocktail parties.
I beg to differ.
Yeah, I was about to say, I just also feel like I know more about all 3 of those topics than I ever wanted to in my entire life, because maybe that's why, actually.
Yeah.
Although I will say the financial planning interest of yours and passion of yours has been very helpful, and it has been really fun to learn a little bit of that from you, and then also have you do some sessions with our fellows about financial planning. So I think that one is great to hear about. Hearing about the number of push-ups that you're doing maybe is a little bit less relevant to all of us.
So telling you I did 150 so far today, that's not something you want to hear. I get it. All right, I got you. Okay, I'm with you.
Mm-hmm. No, since it is just audio, not video, they can't see our eyes rolling at you saying that.
Or how swole you are right now, because you're always pretty swole. I don't know if the kids even still say that term. That was a phrase I learned a few years ago. I don't know if that's fallen out of vogue. Tony, you mentioned earlier, we talked about the fact that you don't have a fear of failure. Mm-hmm. What are you afraid of?
Heights. Terrified of heights. Hate heights. Won't go on. In fact, we were in Seattle for PHM. My kids went up to the Space Needle, and the top of that is like a glass bottom. I wouldn't do that. That was crazy. So I am very afraid of heights. So yes. If you ever want to terrify me, there's plenty of stories where I was up high and I was like, this is a bad idea. So that would be my big fear. And of course, like stuff everyone's afraid of, something happening to a family member, et cetera. But the big phobia I have is heights.
What about in terms of, just trying to think of, I think when I was your fellow, we had some scary situations, more just you created some rules about about certain I couldn't be doing meetings and walking or meetings and running because of.
Oh God. Yeah, that was, I mean, I didn't want to bring that up on this, but that was terrifying. Where you were running and then there was a guy with a knife that the police were chasing right near you, and you were in a fellowship meeting. We were like, go home. Please go home. Like, just hang up on the meeting, get yourself home, let us know you're safe. And I think we instituted a rule: no more meetings while running.
Yeah, I think those are the links that I had to go to get out of meetings with you as a fellow. Just kidding. Just kidding. So besides the daily workout updates, one of the other, I think, incredible things about being partnered with Tony is the daily coffee time. So for those that don't have the privilege of being a member of our division, every day at usually in the afternoon, but it also kind of depends on what Tony's work schedule is. He'll send a text out on our PHM group chat and say coffee time, 5 minutes in his office. And you go down you bring your cup and Tony will fill it up with coffee in exchange for some banter or joke or spending some time with him, which is a high cost to pay, I will tell you. Just kidding. But Tony, I'm curious, if you could have coffee with anybody, dead or alive, who would you pick?
Dead or alive? Well, I guess I'll give you two answers. The first answer, I would pick dead, as my grandfather. I think that would be a really nice cup of coffee. He was one of the reasons I went into medicine as well. It's not a great story, but I remember he was sick. He was very sick. And he asked me what I wanted to do. And I said either lawyer or doctor. And he was a Lebanese immigrant, didn't know any English. And in Lebanon, lawyers apparently have a reputation of being quite corrupt, and they go into politics and they're corrupt. So he said to me, be a doctor, don't be a corrupt lawyer. You'll help people. And it was funny because he was really sick and we're like making jokes. But he meant it. He actually really meant it. And it stuck with me. And he was just a wonderful, wonderful man, a super interesting life. So I'd love to have coffee with him. And if I could pick somebody alive, I'll give you two answers. I would probably pick Warren Buffett. I would probably pick Warren Buffett to have coffee with, just to be able to pick his brain and chat with him. I've read everything about the man. I've watched or listened to all of the Berkshire Hathaway annual meetings. So I would love to just chat. I wrote him a letter once. He did not respond. I hope he read it, but he didn't respond.
Again, circling back to the lack of fear of failure thing. Yeah. You wrote him a letter?
Well, I was giving a talk for this PHM annual meeting on financial planning with Lisa Herman and Matthew Malloy, doctors Lisa Herman and Matthew Malloy. And I would have loved to have some words of wisdom from Warren. So I wrote him a letter basically saying, hey, I've been a big fan for, I don't know, many years. I read everything, blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking to a group of physicians. Over your years, I'm sure you've talked to a lot of physicians, and something about, I wrote it in a nicer way. I had my wife proofread it. If there's any words of wisdom you can share with us, I would love to read it to the group. Now, he's written every year for his annual report. He talks all the time. So I'm sure he was like, if you've read my stuff, you know what I have to say, which I'm sure is what he was thinking. But he didn't write back. But I was very excited. I was actually very excited mailing that letter as I wrote originally, because he's 93 years old. So I know he gets email, but I thought he would really respond to a handwritten letter in the mail. So I did that. Very excited dropping that letter in the mailbox.
Did you? He doesn't enough anymore. That sounds like I'm sure he read it. I'm sure he meant to respond. He just got a little busy.
Maybe got busy. Yeah. Well, that's fair. That's fair.
My question for you is, did you mention, like, how far into the letter did you mention this podcast?
I don't think I brought the podcast up. I told him about
the annual meeting. He didn't respond.
I told him about the annual meeting, and I've given a talk, and I would have loved to. Oh, it would have been great.
So, listeners, we have a running pool in our division for almost every meeting or gathering that we have. How long into the meeting until Tony says the word podcast? It's usually somewhere between the 3 and 5 minute mark. Doesn't matter what the meeting is, purpose.
At all.
It's about the 3 to 5 minute mark, approximately. Tony, you said 2 people, so a living that you would want to have coffee with. Warren Buffett was 1.
Oh, I meant 2, like my grandfather and Warren.
Okay.
So 1 dead, 1 living. I mean, there's probably a lot. I wouldn't mind, like, but the Warren would be, I think, number 1.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll give you Warren.
Yeah. And while we loop back to the podcast for a minute, sort of be getting really meta, talking about podcast on said podcast. This is, as I'm sure you're well aware, your podcast is quite popular. We actually have very solid data that would indicate that at least in the year 2019, you were the 2nd most popular podcast in Kazakhstan, as we like to say. So before we kind of delve into the basis of the broad international appeal that you have, tell us how you feel about Europe.
So I like Europe in general. I will say this is stemming from I am not one of my, how do I put this? One of the areas of being a human that I'm still working on, I travel really poorly. I'm a bad traveler. I don't enjoy the process. I just don't enjoy the process at all. And we went, I think my kids and I and my wife, my whole family and I went to Amsterdam. And Amsterdam was lovely, but I did not enjoy myself in the slightest at all. It was during a heat wave, and they were not used to it because it's usually quite cool and temperate. And so there was no air conditioners anywhere, and I was very hot. I hate being hot. And I just, the food I didn't like. I mean, I remember, and my kids, my youngest was 3, and she was handling this so much better than I was.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
My kids are very much like their mother. They're outstanding travelers, right? They will go anywhere, and they will, by day 2, my oldest son was figuring out the train system and able to get himself just about anywhere within Amsterdam. And they went to the museums. So I am happy to say my kids are very much like their mother. And I am a poor traveler. And if I can avoid it at anywhere, I will. I remember I didn't like any of the trip. And I'm not rushing to go back to Europe because I know myself. I will say proudly, I just went to Alaska, had a lovely time, had a wonderful time on a cruise, but I had to fly there, and I had a wonderful time, and I enjoyed that extensively. But I am not. Yeah, all of us are still working. I'm still working on being a good traveler. It's a work in progress.
Then it makes perfect sense why you would have chosen to be the one of the organizers of the National PHM meeting. The fact that you hate travel so much. It seems like a natural segue.
I mean,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Last year it was in Philly, and I drove, so I was okay.
And Philly's like home for you, yeah.
It's like home. Yeah, I love Philly.
Yeah, good point.
For those that were not able to attend the PHM conference this year, the opening session or the opening kind of segment was a video that I'm pretty sure Tony convinced people to make just because it involved him doing push-ups, B, eating cheesesteaks, and then B, forgetting about a meeting that he was supposed to be in attendance at, which is just about like the 3 things that he does every day, all day long here at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh.
I will say to that effect, there's method acting where you gotta put yourself in that position and pretend to be that thing. That was not a hard stretch for me in the slightest. I enjoyed that a lot. In fact, we were done. I honestly was like, "Oh, can we do more? I'm ready. I'm fine. This is me. It's great." Yeah, that role was not a far stretch.
Oh my gosh!
So shifting gears a little bit, Tony, we've talked a lot about some areas of success for you, and we briefly touched on your family. we talked a lot about some of your upbringing, but your current nuclear family, and you mentioned Megan and the kids at every podcast, and just want to give them a quick shout out that they are an incredible source of support for you. And I think that it's very, very fair to say, which you do, that you would not have the career that you have without that support at home. You do a really great job, I think, of balancing, work and home life. From my perspective, you do that really well. Tell us how do you pull that off? What are some secrets to being a great dad and a great husband, and keeping your attention and being successful at work?
Well, this answer will not surprise you. I think it's marrying the right partner. I think my partner is Megan, and the reason I have any success in anything is because of her. I mean, she's made me a better person, a better doctor, a much better parent. She's working on making me a better husband. It's continuing along. And she is the reason for everything. So the fact that I can balance stuff at home is because she sets up home life around me, around my schedule, around everything, so I can be involved with it. She is an extremely intelligent, organized person who is very loving, but she's very generous. So whenever my kids, we homeschool our kids, she homeschools our kids, and so they're always around, and so everything is set up like, she looks at my schedule, she asks me what we need. So the best answer to that question, for anyone listening who needs advice, which I'm not sure anyone needs advice from me, is marry the right partner. That is the key to success. For me, that's been the key to success. I think I would have done okay, but I am doing much better, I think, purely because of her.
Yeah, I having had the good fortune to meet Megan on several occasions, and even have dinner over at the Tarchichi house a couple times.
That's right.
I can say that she is, it's not even like the better half, because she is just so disproportionately responsible for the better part of it.
Yeah.
But no, she is truly an incredible human. So and your kids are amazing. And they are, they're so fun and so smart. Oh my gosh, Abby, they're incredible. So you are modeling work-life integration really well.
Well, I hope that. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very nice. Yeah, Megan's, there's no yin and yang. It's mostly her. It's mostly her. I don't know how else to say it.
How does she feel about the podcast? Does she have a favorite episode?
She does not. No, she listened to the first few. She doesn't listen to all of them. So I think she knows it's important to me, so she likes it. But I don't think she has very strong feelings. I think she supports it and she likes it. She listens to me when I am bouncing ideas off of potential episodes or editing issues that I may have with an episode here or there. And she'll gladly, give her feedback whenever it's needed. But no, that's the extent of it. That is the extent of it.
Did she have any opinions about this episode?
No, I don't think she knew how deep even I didn't think I realized how much you guys were going to go into this. So I don't think I hope she's okay. I'm sure she will be. But I don't, she didn't have any real feedback. She knows for years I've been trying to do a holiday. It's one of those things where you grow up watching sitcoms like Family Matters, like Who's the Boss, this and that, and there's always a holiday episode. And I was like, oh God, that'd be great to have a holiday episode. And that's really where it came from. Most of my life comes from TV I watched growing up.
Well, along those lines, tell us about your favorite holiday memory. It doesn't have to be, could be any holiday. What would that be?
Well, the one that stands out right off the bat, but it was the year before I got married, and it was because for years my family, my parents and I did we ran around a bunch for the holidays, and that was the one year for some reason we didn't go anywhere. And on Christmas morning, we just got up. There was leftover food, and we had cookies and stuff. And we got in our pajamas. We stayed in our pajamas, and we watched. My sister had gotten the box set of Everybody Loves Raymond, seasons 1 through the whole thing, 1 through 9, I think. and we just started watching them. And we went through the entire thing over the whole day. We didn't do anything else. And we were laughing out loud. It was one of the first times I've seen them all. We were laughing out loud, hysterical, and it was just quiet and chill. So that one stands out a lot. But then I want to say during the pandemic, and I hate to say this because of how bad the pandemic was for a lot of people, but my family and I thankfully didn't have any. There wasn't any significant deaths or anything like that in our family, and it was the first time my wife and I didn't have to travel for the holidays. Because normally we go to her parents and my parents, and there was something wonderful about being home and not having to go anywhere. Now I'm fairly certain my parents and in-laws will listen to this, so we do love going places. We do love seeing everybody, but there was something wonderful about that year when we were just home. We didn't have to go anywhere. We had the hot cocoa, we had the Christmas cookies, we had the presents, and I think I even worked on Christmas Day, but it was just nice being small and quiet. I think that's what I like. With the job we do, we're always around people, so I like small and quiet when I'm able to get it.
Good. Yeah, but sometimes those little, those little moments are pretty special. And it sounds like you guys were binging before binge watching was really much of a thing. Going through an entire box set's different from streaming an entire series.
It was a lot of fun. That was a really memorable Christmas. Really, really memorable.
And then what are you working Christmas or Thanksgiving this year, Tony?
I work Thanksgiving and I'm working Christmas. And we always kind of do the same thing where I'll usually work Christmas, and then afterwards we'll go see our families. We'll go see my parents and my wife's parents, my in-laws. And we usually split it up pretty evenly. And for Christmas, it's usually, if things are not too busy, which the last year was very busy, and it looks like this year is going to be the same. I get out as soon as I can, and the kids will usually open gifts whenever I'm home. So Christmas Eve at night or Christmas Day in the morning if I'm working evenings. And then, they'll and my kids at this point honestly are used to it. They know Dad works on the holidays. They growing up in a physician household. There are certain things they've just grown up with, and they're very used to this. But then we'll go see the families afterwards and have a great time with everybody.
And I'm sure that you do all of the Christmas shopping, and Megan doesn't have to do any of it, and you take care of it for the entire family.
Oh, you know me so well, Ellie. I don't do any of it. I don't do any Christmas shopping. I don't think my wife would trust the things I would purchase. I don't know. She does a significantly better job. She knows the kids very well, and she looks for deals and gets things at the right time. And if I were to do it, it would be done worse. It will be done, but it wouldn't be as good. The kids know it. My wife knows that I know it. And so we stick to our strengths.
Anybody out there looking for a very useful future soundbite, let's just reflect for a moment. What Tony just said, if I were to do it, it would be done worse. You pull that out and apply that soundbite wherever you want to stick it. I think take it totally out of context. I think that'd be fantastic. Tony, any fun gift giving stories from you? Like one where you got Megan something that totally knocked it out of the park or totally fell on its face?
Well, yeah, both actually, both. The best gifts I've ever gotten, where I shine, if you can call it that, is when I've done personalized gifts. So a few years in a row, I've put together photo albums of memorable things that have happened over the course of the year. And when they were very little, I had the kids put their handprint on a paper, and I had them draw or write their name if they could, depending upon their age. And then I remember one I did where I had them pick their favorite thing they did with their mother that year. And I put that in the photo album, and I wrote that it was their choice what their favorite thing was. So that's where I've done well. In those, I hit it out the park. It's when it's like Christmas Eve and I forgot to get things and I'm running out, and I just kind of grab whatever the biggest thing that I see in front of me is that I don't do very well. I do not do well then at all. And it's usually jewelry or perfume for my wife. if I do, and then that's why she stopped letting me do that. Like that's really it's a couple of years of that. And she's like, we're not doing this anymore. So then she told me what, and then, so yeah, that's when I've done well. And that's when I've done poorly. But that photo album, I did that a couple years in a row. That was a big hit.
That sounds like big hit. Yeah.
Yeah. That was nice.
Well, apart from what sounds like maybe some lesser success in gift giving, although you did mention some successes, you have been incredibly successful in this first third or so of your career. What is next? What do you have in store, or what do you envision? And what's kind of a career goal that you still have that you want to accomplish in the next third of your career?
That's a great question, Ellie. I want to make sure priorities stay straight in whatever I'm doing. So family, my family's happy with where we are and what we're doing first and foremost. And that'll always be number one. And then for me, I want to continue. I've been very fortunate, right? Not many people can say they've gone to work and done exactly what they wanted to do. And rarely have I had to take part in things I have no interest in. And that's really a blessing. I mean, this podcast, I remember bringing it up to Basil Zatelli and even to Ben, and everybody was like, "That sounds like a great idea. Good luck." And that was it. That was really, it was like, okay, I'm going to give it a try. And I've been able to run with it. The fellowship was the same way. When Jess Garrison and I started it together, it was just like, okay, let's give it a shot. And I want to be able to keep doing things I'm really interested in. And like right now we have a big, and it's not a secret anymore because I think the first APPD email went out. We have a big project going on with the podcast for a Journal Club series that we're going to test to see if it teaches Journal Club for residents, pediatric residents, as well as whatever else is going on, to see if this is a medium that can be used. So I don't know that I have more plans than that. Like there's not a thing I want to do that I'm not doing. I'm a part nationally with the American Academy of Pediatrics on the section on hospital medicine executive committee. I enjoy that work. You know, I was one of the planners of a national meeting, and I'm still part of a planning committee for the next PHM stuff. So I've done a bunch of stuff. I can't think of anything that as long as my family's happy and I'm still enjoying myself at work, which I am, and able to do things I really am motivated and excited about, I think I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I don't have big plans other than that. There's not a vision board that I have. I know people say you should, but if I'm content and happy, and especially if my wife is content and happy and the kids, I'm good. I'm very good.
And I feel like that's a fantastic place for us to finish off this holiday episode of the podcast, talking about a little bit of happiness and joy. I want to say I am grateful to you for the space here. This has been a lot of fun. I hope that your listeners enjoy this time getting to know you a little bit better.
Well, I will say I am thank you guys, but I am very grateful for our listeners, because without this, there'd be no show. And I am thankful if they've listened to this one and they're still going to keep listening. Thank you all.
I was just going to say thank you to Tony for, teaching us so much and, always being an amazing role model in so many things, but also just having a great sense of humor and always being up for being teased with love, always with love. And really just, a huge part of why our division feels like such a family is because no matter what is happening, we can all get together and laugh at Tony. And so really grateful that we have that, and you provide that. And mostly grateful to Megan for keeping you together.
That's not wrong there. You're not wrong there. This has been fun. Happy holidays to everybody listening from all of us here in Pittsburgh. We hope you have a great time. We hope the census slows down for you and you get to enjoy yourself a little bit. And we'll see you at the next episode.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you for listening.